She's not what you'd expect. She's tough and feisty, but gentle and tender. She makes millions and gives millions to the poor. She cries, she laughs, she teaches, she comforts. This is the Dani Johnson Show.
Hi, I'm Dani Johnson. Welcome to the Dani Johnson Show. Hey, are you shacking up with your boyfriend or your girlfriend? I'm sorry, I just had to say it. Hey, there's like this, the numbers are crazy about how many people are shacking up together thinking that this is a good idea before marriage. And we've asked the question actually on our social media if people thought it was a good idea. I have actually been completely shocked at the responses. I think I'm also shocked at the boldness that people have in answering that question, which I love the fact that they feel like they can be honest in our community, because we have a very non-judgmental community, which I love. Of course, there's a few of those sailors that sail right in and just give it to you with all their judgment. And we just go ahead and wave as they sail on by back to their church and all of their self-righteousness. But hey, here on the Dani Johnson Show, we bring you content every day to help you get everything you want out of life, to help you win on a daily basis in every area of your life, for you to have success in every single place that you personally want it. We also help you to redefine success for you, because success for one is not the definition of success for another. And for some people, marriage is a really big deal. If you really think about it, I mean, just think about this. Most people don't have any other dream growing up. Like the biggest dream that most men or little boys and little girls have is to one day find love, to fall in love, to end up getting married, and hopefully to not have the marriage the parents had in most cases, especially when you have 1 out of 2 ending up in divorce, right? And or you watch mom and dad not be affectionate, not even talk to each other. You could feel the massive tension that was in the room. Or in my case, if you grew up in my house, you watched blood splattering, 911 being called, ambulance coming, sadly to pick up my mother who looked like she was dead. I don't know how my mom survived the insane, and I mean insane amount of violence that she had coming literally at her face. I could tell you stories that would infuriate you. You would have to forgive the man that raised me if I told you all the stories of what I witnessed growing up. But the bottom line is that most people have a dream to get married. It's almost like dream/fantasy, especially with Disney that has played into the whole thing, right? With, boy meets girl, kiss, and bam, everything lives happily ever after. Not. Anyway, and that there's no work, there's no investment into any of it. So today we want to explore this. You see, your success has everything to do with relationships. Relationships is tied to every single area of your life. It's tied to your finances. It's tied to the legacy that you want to leave behind. It's tied to building wealth. It's tied to whether or not you're going to advance yourself and get promoted through life and at work. Relationships is tied to, what happens at home, around the kitchen table, and in the bedroom. It has everything to do with everything. And so here on Friday, this Family Friday, we're going to talk about this idea of, is it a good idea to shack up before you get married? And maybe you don't even know what that term is. Okay, did I totally date myself? Probably dated myself with saying shacking up because it's kind of a term from the 90s, 80s, and 90s. Maybe the millennials will bring it back. They like bringing things back. They call it vintage. Anyway, wait, does that mean I'm vintage? Quite possibly. Yeah. I think I'm probably vintage. I've been in business for 30 years. I've been sleeping with the same man for 27 and a half. I think that makes me somewhat vintage. My oldest child is 31 years old. I have 8 grandchildren, 5 kids, soon to be more grandkids, hopefully, prayerfully. Okay, so is it a good idea? Okay, well, I have my own personal story about that. But let's go to what kind of the general consensus and what is actually, how many times can I say actually? What is actually happening as a trend? Okay, so check this out. Because some people believe that living together is a really not a big deal. It's a good idea that it actually, might prepare them for marriage. Some people actually think that. And that's okay. People have their own opinions, but I'm curious as to where some of these opinions have actually come from. Where did they come up with these ideas? How did they figure that this was a good idea? Is this their own idea? Or is this idea rooted out of fear and a lack of trust? Is it a fear of getting a divorce one day? Is it the lack of trust in one's ability to make a good, solid decision? Is this the reason why we have this idea that, oh, it's a good idea to live together before we get married? Well, check this out. 2/3 of marriages today are preceded by living together. What? Oh, that is like shocking to me. 2/3. What? Like, okay, 66% of married couples lived together before they got married. That just like completely blows my mind. Seriously. And according to Psychology Today, living together before marriage is viewed as a risk factor for divorce. So, wow, it predicts later marital instability, poorer marriage quality, and less relationship satisfaction. So it's, come on, we've all heard it. It's like, let's test drive the car before we buy the darn thing. Friend, if you are equating marriage to buying a car, that right therein lays the first problem. It is not like you're not buying something. It's the same, like, okay, you've heard the old saying, okay, if a woman is going to give it up, that if she's going to sleep with a man before she's married, well, then he doesn't have to buy the cow in order to get his milk. Okay. Why do we have these analogies about marriage? Like, this is disgusting if you think about it, right? Okay, I'm going to test drive the car before I buy it. Friends, this is not marriage. Marriage is not buying a cow, and marriage is not buying a car. It is none of those things at all. Like, there's no relationship in buying a car, and there's no relationship in buying a cow so you can suck the milk out of it. That was bad. So bad. Okay, so check it out. 2/3 of the couples are living together before they get married, yet 1 out of 2 end up in divorce. So is it really working? Is that whole plan really a solid plan? Here's what I'm going to tell you. I want you to analyze right now. If you would consider kind of like this, okay, we got Amanda Brahman who says, I honestly feel in my heart it's like buying a car without test driving it. I take marriage seriously. If I'm going to commit under God for my life, I'm going to make sure it's with the right man. I don't judge people either way, but personally, I couldn't commit to marrying someone I'm not confident I can live with forever. Okay. All right. So, that's interesting. So I appreciate what she wrote. I really do. But if we're going to talk about God, I don't know what God we're talking about here, but as far as from a biblical standpoint, it's very clear that you do not live together and you don't sleep together. You don't have sex before you get married. Like that's a biblical thing. Okay. So now I will tell you this. When Zach and Erica were courting, Zach moved from Oregon. This is our daughter, our second daughter. Zach moved from Oregon to Texas, and he stayed with us for a few months until he got off on his feet. And so, he actually shared a bedroom with one of Erica's brothers, and Erica was downstairs in a different room, and there was nothing but honor in this place. And those two were virgins when they got married that following March, right? So they had a very short courtship, and they did not have sex before they got married. In fact, they didn't kiss for, a really long time. It was, in fact, a very long time. In fact, it was after they got engaged, they had their first peck, and it was on Christmas Day or something like that. And so they really protected their honor. And so there's something really special about that. And I have to tell you, if you spend any time with me, you know that I am a big believer in saving yourself for marriage. Why? Because I didn't, and I paid the price for it. Teen pregnancy, and a whole bunch of other problems too that your virgin ears probably couldn't handle. But Hans and I did live together before we got married. And I'm going to tell you what that brought into. It brought a facade, is what it brought into our marriage. Let me tell you how it went. First of all, when we first, we did it all like backwards. Well, maybe not, according to these statistics. Maybe it wasn't back. We did it biblically backwards, like hardcore, right? So anyway, we got pregnant. We moved in together. Then we got married, and then we started dating after. we got married. Yeah, a year after we got married, we started dating. Yeah, so we were married, living in the same house, but we didn't date. We didn't start dating until somebody told us that in order to save your marriage, you need to start dating and having time set apart just for the two of you. Okay, so what was it? You see, when Hans and I were living together, I was his girlfriend, sort of. You're not going to like what I'm going to say. And if you don't like what I'm going to say, you might want to kick your big, religious, self-righteous ego out the door so that you can actually hear where I'm going with this conversation. So I'm just giving you personal experience, okay? And I've seen it on both sides for just oodles and oodles of couples, okay? I've seen the blessing of two people saving themselves, saving their purity, saving their virginity for each other. I've also seen the beautiful blessing of one, let's say, that didn't save themselves, but they're not like, just out there going crazy, and then all of a sudden they meet a virgin, and then they stop going crazy. I'm just saying that I've seen a great blessing when somebody has decided to be celibate who once wasn't. They meet somebody else that is celibate, and they then do not come together again as one flesh until after they've exchanged vows, and now they're living in the same home or whatever. So with Hans and I have to tell you, it was a major bait and switch. Living together before you get married, from my experience and from the experiences that I have witnessed and the experiences that other people have shared with me, their own personal experience, is that it did not prepare them for marriage at all. Not even a little bit. You see, when Hans and I lived together, I was happily building my companies. He was attempting to build a business for himself as well. He was struggling. He was young. He was 18. I was 22. I had already kind of been established financially. I was on my third business at that point, two of them at that time that were very, very successful. And, he was trying to find his footing. We had had a child together, and we lived in the same house, and we had lots of fun together. We really did. And then as soon as we got married, I spiritually became a wife, even though I wasn't necessarily walking with God. In fact, I was still a metaphysician the day we got married. I was someone that practiced witchcraft, not knowing that that's what I was doing, but that's what I was doing. I was practicing witchcraft with tarot cards and psychics, and we're talking thousands of dollars I spent on these things. And so here I was in this place where, I was this like super free-spirited kind of person. And we get married, and all of a sudden, I now have an expectation, several of them, that I didn't have before. All of a sudden, I wanted Hans to provide for us. All of a sudden, I wanted Hans to protect us. And I used to nitpick him about locking the front door. All of a sudden, I wanted him to contribute as a man into the household, as a husband. All of a sudden, I looked to him as leadership. I'll tell you about it. In the two and a half years that we lived together before, I never asked him if I could go someplace or do something, but all of a sudden we get married, and I'm like, hey, are you okay if I go to LA to see this speaker talk about and he's like, yeah, sure, go for it. I'm pretty sure he was shocked that all of a sudden I am now asking him if it's okay with him if I go and do something. Prior to getting married, I never asked him anything. I just traveled, and I just lived my life and did my own thing. And now all of a sudden, now that I'm a wife, and again, like, this is trippy. It wasn't a religious thing because I wasn't yet walking in that world, but it was a spiritual thing that happened. Do you understand that God is the one who created marriage? He is the one who created Adam, and then brought in Eve and created this union called marriage, where the two become one flesh. And so God is a spirit. It's a spiritual issue. And so therefore, marriage is a spiritual thing. And so something happens inside of our very bodies, like physiologically happens inside of us, even mentally. It's the same when I gave birth to Erica. Listen to me. So when I was pregnant with Erica, and again, I'm living with Hans at this time, in my mind, I'm like, okay, I've got, 8 months to get my stuff together because 8 months from now, I'm going to have a child and I need to make sure I'm financially secure. I need to make sure I'm financially stable. I need to make sure I have a home to bring her to because I was traveling all over the country opening up offices for my business. And so I literally was living in like furnished apartments 1 month in one city and then on to another city for a month, you understand? And so I had no home for that year that I was building my companies. And so now when I got pregnant, I was like, okay, I need to make sure I have tons of money in the bank. I need to make sure that this business is stable and can run without as much of my time. And I need to make sure I have a home to bring the child to. Okay, that's what I was thinking. I wasn't thinking Hans needs to make sure and provide a home for us. Hans needs to make sure he is financially stable. Hans needs to make sure that he's going to have, a place where he can protect us and lead us. That is not what I was thinking at all. That was like the furthest thing from my head. However, when I gave birth to Erica, something happened. Now, people would say this all the time because to me, I thought, all right, as soon as I have the baby, I will have a nanny and I'm going to still travel. I'm still going to be at the office. I'm still going to live my life. That's how I thought. Everything changed when I held her. Everything changed when I held that baby. Everything changed inside of me. Now, a mother is what I had become, which, by the way, is a spiritual thing. And so I went from single person, right? Not mother, to mother. And now all of my priorities completely changed. And I took that next year off. I took a year off. I stayed home. And when I did travel, she came with me everywhere. I wanted to spend every waking moment with this beautiful little, gorgeous little girl. And so the same thing has happened with marriage. Do you understand? So something changes in you when you cross this next threshold, this thing that is a spiritual union called marriage. So living together beforehand does not prepare you for marriage at all because your roles completely change spiritually. Physically, mentally, there is a shift that happens inside of you, whether you are religious or you're an atheist. There is a shift that happens inside of you. There's some kind of an order that has been set up since the beginning of time. It's a universal order that God set up inside of us. And so test driving ain't gonna do squat for you, friend, because your boyfriend or your girlfriend is not in the role or the promotion or the position of husband or wife yet. And it will not happen by pretending. It only happens once you exchange vows. And that's it. That's it. Marriage is a commitment that goes beyond what drives each other crazy. You might find the things you don't like about each other by living together, but that is not going to determine whether or not you're successful in marriage. And not only that, those things are going to change through time. So I really hope that I shed some light on you. I absolutely regret that Hans and I lived together. We both regret that we lived together. We both regret that we had a child before we got married. Now we've had to flip that around and make a positive out of it, which was, we told our kids. And thankfully, none of our kids, mine and Hans's kids, Erica, Cabe and Roman, are all married. These guys they saved themselves for their spouse. Erica and Zach did not live together. Roman and Rachel did not live together. Cabe and his wife did live together, and that was their choice. And I'll just say that the relationships are very different. I can just say that. And I have loads and oodles of godchildren that did not live together with their spouse, saved their purity for that day. And I'm telling you, we're blessed because of it. We're absolutely blessed because of it. Because the correct, if you will, expectations are there as you learn to grow inside of this new role, which doesn't happen just by living together. So that's my argument on that. You could do whatever you want. You can call me a prude. Shoot, I don't care. You could also call me like, oh, Dani, I can't believe you live together with your husband. Hey, go ahead and sail right back to your church. Have fun with that judgmental, self-righteous junk and wait for the day for your junk to come out of your closet like judgment, which is the same kind of sin as me living with my boyfriend for 2.5 years before I got married. Anyway, so hey, listen, here at DaniJohnson.com, we don't judge you. You do what you want. You make your own decisions. We give you the option to learn either side. You decide what's going to be best for you. And if you are a believer in the Most High God, I think you know what the answer is. And I hope I shed some light on the spiritual aspect of that. So that's it for us today. Thanks so much for joining us. Hope this blessed you. If it didn't, totally tick you off. Yeah. And if it did, share this video. Let it make somebody else mad. Yeah, and I would love to see your comments. We do read your comments, so please type in on the bottom how you feel about it. And hopefully you've got the maturity not to hate me because I might have a different opinion about that topic. And of course, my opinion is based on personal experience. What about yours? All right, that's it for us. God bless. Bye.